Alrighty, greetings and salutations, everyone. My name is Andrew Kirchhoff, and welcome to our Thursday night live stream for Week 7 of the 2025 fantasy football season. We have all just witnessed quite an incredible fantasy game, to be honest. I mean, almost every single party, in terms of fantasy purposes, outside of potentially a defense, finding success. I mean, the volume of tight ends that the Steelers want to continuously use, obviously with Calvin Austin being out, they look towards Jonnu Smith, Freiermuth, Washington, Hayward as their potential options there. Many of tight ends finding success, primarily like we mentioned earlier today. The Cincinnati Bengals give up the most points per game to opposing tight ends. Based on today's statistics, that will probably never change for the remainder of the year. And in the Steelers were the third best matchup, where Noah Fant goes off, T. Higgins goes off, Jamar Chase goes off, and even, everybody finding success within this Bengals offense. We find a 100-yard rushing game out of Chase Brown. What a day. I mean, not to mention, of course, we have Jaylen Warren, incredibly relevant for fantasy purposes, especially in a full PPR with his 4 receptions. And then we have a quiet DK Metcalf. Of all the weeks for DK to be quiet, quite an interesting one. As someone who just started Joe Flacco in a Superflex league, in a 6-point per passing Superflex league, and I just got 31.98 fantasy points from him. I'm looking at it right now. Feels pretty good. Feels pretty damn good. As someone who lost Joe Burrow earlier this year, it's great to see that we're getting some value and the resurgence of life in the Cincinnati Bengals offense, as many of us obviously highly invested into that offense with pieces like Jamar Chase, Chase Brown, T. Higgins, etc. Hope you guys are doing well on this wonderful Thursday. That game, of course, was exciting, as every Thursday night game has been exciting thus far this season. The underdogs on Thursday nights continuing to create and find victories over the course of the last month of the season now. So every time we get to a Thursday night game, expect for the underdog to pull it out. Like if we look at NFL Week 8 schedule, let's see who's playing next Thursday night, just for the perspective. We have the Chargers taking on the Vikings. It's going to be at the Chargers. The Chargers will be the favorites. Expect for J.J. McCarthy to come out and surprise the world. I'm just putting it out there. It's already it's written in the books. Either way, hope you guys are doing well. All in all, we're going to go ahead and talk about fantasy football and any sort of, potential path that we would like to explore in regards to the questions that you guys type in the live chat and or send in via super chat to claim priority. These questions can be starter sits, they can be potential trade questions, waiver wire pickups, anything of that nature. If you guys have any questions, be sure to go ahead and ask. Tomorrow, instead of a Hidden Gems episode, I'm thinking of putting out rest of season running back rankings, as I know many of you have asked for that. So I'll probably try to oblige and work on that later tonight. So we'll be here for probably about an hour, and then we're going to go ahead and close it out and try to get to as many potential questions as possible. Quick was saying 23 targets is nuts. Yeah. Listen, every single time. Okay, here's the thing. The Pittsburgh Steelers, as you guys I'm sure noticed, played a lot of man coverage. They want to play cover 2 man. They want to just play straight man and bring pressure. I get it. But when you're playing against Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, maybe let's play a little bit of zone. Maybe let's leave a little bit of, an opportunity for somebody else to stop Jamar Chase. But I mean, even in the zone opportunities in which they gave him, he's just running like a deep 15-yard out every single time. Open. And Flacco is able to put it there because, the pass rusher was not able to get to him, or, when he's so damn tall, it just makes it easy. All right, let's get into it, shall we? Let's go ahead. I'm going to pull up the YouTube chat right here, and then we're going to go ahead and pull up the super chat questions that claim priority really quickly. Andrew Piscino with the first question of the day. Andrew, thank you very much. Says, I traded Christian McCaffrey for Drake London and Breece Hall in a full PPR. Graded. I think that's a fantastic trade under the assumption that Breece Hall finds himself starting to really pick up his overall workload of opportunity in the coming weeks here. My only concern regarding that is Hall, because obviously Drake London is going to be successful as we proceed, regardless of how their upcoming matchups are going to kind of play out because of the opportunity share that he'll be exposed to. Taking on Carolina this week, Cincinnati the week after, I think these are advantageous matchups for him under the assumption that he gets enough opportunity on the ground through the air. Then once he comes back from the bye, a little bit of a concern as they take on Cleveland, New England, a revitalized Baltimore, Atlanta. Those are 4 straight legitimately elite run stop defenses in terms of yards per carry allowed and fantasy points per game allowed to opposing running backs on the ground alone. If you look at earlier this week's Tuesday running back rankings video, a little bit of a sketchy situation there. But then from that point forward, Miami, Jacksonville, New Orleans. I mean, he could end up being like a fantasy playoff stud, But the primary reason you made this trade is for London. I understand that, but I would love for Breece Hall to be far more relevant than what the schedule potentially predicts in terms of his future. That's going to be the determining factor. If he balls out, then you have nothing to worry about. If he gets traded, you got nothing to worry about, assuming he lands somewhere that is going to tote the rock in his direction. Thank you. All right, Eric sends in a question. Says, Fannin, Marks, Harvey, or Whittington half PPR? Yeah, it's Fannin. We have seen that David Njoku has not practiced either of the last 2 days, Wednesday or Thursday. You know, Harold Fannin with the entire opportunity share of that offense. I mentioned it earlier today. I mentioned it yesterday. In regards to the overall targets that the tight end position has seen since Dillon Gabriel has taken over the Cleveland Browns starting position, he has targeted his tight ends in the last 2 games a total of 30 times. 15 targets per game on average. If Harold Fannin is expected for 10 targets against the Miami Dolphins, who are already a top 12 tight end matchup at the position, it's just continuing to add just more influence in making the decision of starting him over the alternative options. Thank you. Fainsky sends in a question, says, I'm 3-3 in a 12-team full PPR. Thoughts on this trade yesterday? My Hall and Chase Brown for Gibbs Spears. You know, considering Chase Brown really on his best day today, 100 yards in a full PPR, what did he end up demonstrating? It's probably like maybe 12 points. Let's see here, because I know he had like -8 receiving yards. Let's see, on his best day in a full PPR, he puts up 12 fantasy points, right? And that's 11 carries for 108. I don't mind the trade. You know, there's a possibility in which Tony Pollard can get shipped off in the coming weeks here prior to the trade deadline. There's also a possibility in which Spears can get shipped off. Whichever way that goes about it, I mean, Gibbs is obviously the most valuable prospect in this entire field. And when you have, let's see here. Yeah, the issue is I really don't like your running back depth now that I look at it. Gibbs, Vidal, Harvey, Chubb, and Spears, like, Vidal is a fleeting commodity once Hampton comes back. Harvey, I mean, he's pretty much set to once. In fact, like, if J.K. Dobbins doesn't go anywhere, then Harvey's never going to find value. And Nick Chubb is really he's Nick Chubb. He may score a touchdown. If he doesn't, he's not valuable. And Spears would require somebody to be missing by the name of Tony Pollard in the lineup for him to have value. So in terms of a potential move, sure, Gibbs is the greatest, but I'd still want to continue to explore trades in which you can try to get another running back here, because what you have as your RB2 in the meanwhile is pretty rough. But I don't mind the trade in terms of getting Gibbs. Chan sends in a question. Thank you, Chan. Says, hello, my question is in the comments. Thanks. Okay, Chan. Says, in a full PPR 4-2, my running backs are Henry, Bucky, and Hampton. All are out this week. So I'm starting this week with Knight and Spears. Okay. I traded Sutton and Bo Nix for Dobbins. How would you rate this trade? I mean, considering the necessity of the trade in a generalities purpose, because think about it this way. Hampton is going to be out for 4 to 5 games. Bucky Irving could miss in the next 2 to 3 weeks. The most recent report that I saw was that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers signed another running back to their practice squad, which leads me to believe that there's a possibility in which Bucky Irving may miss even more significant time, because not only is he dealing with a foot injury, but also a shoulder injury. So if one of those 2 injuries is continuing to cause complications in his recovery process and, of course, his rehab process, there is a possibility in which you may not have Hampton or Bucky, for the next 4 weeks here. And in the event in which that's the case, you are going to need Dobbins alongside of Henry, because Knight, again, is in a backfield committee, and so is Spears, to be able to help you. So I think this is a great decision that you made. Yes, you're giving up Sutton in a full PPR, who is technically more valuable than Dobbins, but in the case of your situation, the more valuable piece here is trying to secure running back, which you were able to accomplish, which I think I take my hat off to you for that one. Good job, Chan. Shung Bull sends in a question. Says, should I trade Pearsall for Goddard? Team is in the chat. I mean, honestly, just looking at the trade as a whole, as long as you don't have a legitimate tight end and you're going to be able to get one in the form of Goddard, I think I'm more than happy to make this trade. Specifically, you do have Kelsey. Says, I have Lamar, I have Genty, I have Mason. Okay. Henderson, Puka, Rome, Evans, Pearsall, and Wanda Robinson. So Puka Nacua is only going to be out for probably this week and then the bye, and he'll be back by week 9. Fingers crossed, and knock on wood, of course. In regards to Evans, he should be back this week. Rome Odunze's already passed his bye week. Pearsall still dealing with injury. We did hear a specific comment from the general manager John Lynch of the 49ers, really kind of not giving us much of an indication as to the recovery process of Pearsall, kind of lending a little bit of information based on his, like, it's not really coach speak, it's more like GM speak, in the idea that, like, maybe he's like 2 weeks away from coming back. In the event in which you're making this trade because you're worried about Kelce, I don't mind this trade. Do you need to make it? I don't think it's a necessity. I think Kelce will suffice. And I'm sure that there are other kind of waiver wire options. But in the case in which you're like, listen, I'm never going to start Pearsall anyway because I have Puka Rome Evans, then yeah, we make this trade. Samaj sends in a question. Thank you very much, Samaj. Trade advice in the chat. Thanks, man. Says in a full PPR double flex format, no defense. Okay. Says I'm thinking about trading Henry and Garrett Wilson for Sun God and Pollard. Team is Daniel Jones, Christian McCaffrey, David Montgomery, Deebo Samuel, JSN, Mason Taylor, Bam Knight, K-Dot, Pinheiro. My bench is Michael Carter, Charbonnet, Downs, Njoku, Stafford, and Pearsall. As a whole, like rest of season value, I'd rather have Henry and Garrett Wilson. In the event in which you told me, hey, Andrew, listen, I have Henry out on a bye week this week, and Garrett Wilson's going to miss this week and the following week because of injury and bye week. I'm sitting at a record of 1-5, 0-6. I need something to inject into my lineup this week to get me a W. I'd be like, you know what? Okay, we can go about it that way, and we can make this trade. But in the event in which that's not the case, I would genuinely rather have Henry and Garrett Wilson because Sun God's going on bye week next week anyway, right? So at that point, I'm thinking in terms of rest of season value, this is the more valuable duo in comparison to Amon-Ra and Pollard. So I'd keep Henry and Wilson and keep it pushing. Thank you so much. Thinking of the fact that Pollard may be traded. Yeah, but look, if you're trading for Pollard under the expectation of something to occur of this capacity, I think you're putting too much weight and value into that. Because let's say Pollard does get traded, but he is traded to a team that already has an established RB. For example, okay, let me give you an example point here. Let's say he does get traded, but he's traded to the Miami Dolphins. Okay, let's just put it out there. And he's going to play as a 1-2 back next to Achane. Doesn't help him, but he gets traded. Let's say he gets traded to, I don't know, let's throw another option out there. He is moved to the Texans. Okay, at that point, there's a possibility in which he could be the lead back. And he's not going to get traded to the Texans. What am I saying? Never mind. In that case, it wouldn't happen because that's interdivisional. Let's say he gets traded to the Chargers. Okay, at that point, you are waiting and you're going to get 4 solid weeks out of Pollard until Hampton comes back, and then you get a 2-headed monster. Like, there are going to be very little situations in the NFL where you get traded to a team and you become the outright starter for the remainder of the season at running back right now. Because there isn't very many like season-ending injuries. So at the moment, there's not too many open jobs nor season-ending injuries to where we're thinking, yeah, we can make him move and him immediately gain value. I don't think that's going to exist. Maybe if he lands in Arizona, that could be incredible. But again, Arizona is, they're trending in the wrong direction as of late. But they do have a week 8 bye, so maybe they can do it during the bye week. I'd still keep Derrick Henry and Garrett Wilson. Thanks, man. All right, we continue on with JT, who says A.J. Brown and Trey Tucker for Rico Dowdle. PPR in a 0.15 per rushing attempt league. Okay, here's the thing. Rico Dowdle is just truly an unknown commodity. When I say unknown, it's because of the money that is tied up with Chuba Hubbard as it stands that makes Rico Dowdle a little bit less of a desirable commodity in my mind. Yes, he may be able to continue to maintain as the RB1 of this backfield, but it's not going to be without Chuba Hubbard getting his own run over the course of these weeks and this season. Again, there is so much money tied up with Chuba Hubbard, who signed a contract extension with this team last year in November. It makes it very, very difficult in my mind for me to make a trade of that capacity. Sure, maybe you need running back depth, but I would try to find somebody else. If that's the best option you can get and you have enough wide receiver depth to kind of solidify a trade of this capacity, okay, fine. But in my mind, like, let's say Rico Dowdle rests the season, gets himself anywhere. Okay, let's say the Carolina Panthers are able to run the ball, control the clock, and play like they have over the course of the last couple weeks. And he continues to get himself 13 to 16 total attempts per game, touches per game. Let's put it that way. In that kind of a situation, he is still going to be he's going to be a Kenneth Walker, where it's like, oh, okay, he's got himself touches. It's a matter of, can he be efficient and is he going to get the goal line work? And that's pretty much it, because he'll be in a two-headed monster situation unless one is traded, which I doubt to be the case. So again, there's just a lot of potential for disaster because Chuba Hubbard is talented. Like if Chuba Hubbard was, I don't know, let's throw out a name. If Chuba Hubbard was Hassan Haskins right now and Hassan Haskins was coming back from injury in Carolina, I'd be like, all right, well, Rico's got the job. He's a top 10 back rest of the season. But this is not the case. We have an actual talented running back returning to the lineup. So you could take it. I'm not feeling one way or the other in which you have to. With more context, I could feel more confident in it. But at this point, if you've got enough wide receiver depth and this is the best running back you can get for an AJB level player, then sure. Jay sends in a question, says, what's up, Andrew? Thanks for all the help. Let's see here. Would you start Bill, Kroski, Merritt, or Waddle this week in a full PPR? Purely dependent on weather. I'd probably lean towards Bill because that game in Cleveland is expected to be a heavy downpour. And if that's going to be the case, then it's going to be difficult to not only run routes, but also just stay on your feet and catch the ball because, of course, it's going to be coming out slip and sliding. Specifically because we have seen some of those really heavy downpour games in Cleveland. They're not pretty. I'd probably just get the running back that's associated with an offense that's going into the highest scoring matchup of the weekend. So I'd probably lean towards JCM as of right now. If the weather in Cleveland Sunday morning has no rain, I would just play Waddle at that point. Chuba Hubbard or Dowdle. As of this week, I would probably just play Dowdle ahead of him for sure. I'm going to probably, if you have both on roster, I don't see why you wouldn't play them both against the Jets, but I guess it's just a matter of who else you have as an alternative option. Like if it's, I'm going to play Dowdle, Andrew. I have Chuba and I have Bill. Who do I play? I would just play Bill at that point. Thank you. S-Box sends in a question, says, what players could I get in a trade for Kincaid? I already have Kittle. Also, same question for Scat. That's really not up to me to determine, even though I'm sure I can give you a valuation of those players. Ultimately, the value of a player is only worth what it's kind of going to get you in your league. Like just because I say, oh, you know what? You could try to go trade Scat right now for Derrick Henry. Doesn't mean that it's going to be able to be accomplished. Oh, you can go try to trade Scat right now and try to buy Rashee Rice before he even takes off the ground here. Just because I say these things doesn't mean it's possible for you to accomplish that in your league. Now, if you explore those opportunities and those teams are more willing to obviously make an exchange and make a trade of that capacity, then fantastic. As of right now, in the case of a Dalton Kincaid, because there are so many tight ends in fantasy right now playing at some ridiculously high levels, I would venture to say that it's a little bit of a lesser commodity unless there's someone in your league that specifically likes the Bills offense or wants a piece of it. Obviously he's balling out. He's averaging 11.3 fantasy points per game. And if you can sell it under the guise of that, even though he did miss his most recent week, he's an 11-point tight end. That means I would try to go get a 12, 13-point wide receiver. Maybe you can go get an Addison. Maybe you can go get a Devontae Smith at wide receiver. Those are possibilities. Maybe you can go and see if you can sneak and grab a Keenan Allen from somebody. But in the event in which that is, listen, if you can go steal a Terry McLaurin before it takes off this weekend, let's try to accomplish that. But as of right now, it's purely just based on the value which someone is willing to kind of spend for the player. Even if I give you these names, it doesn't mean that those teams are interested, nor do they want a tight end. It's really just a matter of who in your league is tight end needy and or Scattaboo needy, and finding what they have on roster and trying to figure out, can you make a 1-for-1 or do we have to have a multiplayer trade? Thanks, man. Nathan J says, hey, Andrew, non-PPR, Wan'Dale Robinson or DJ Moore? DJ Moore's been limited in practice over the course of this week. As of right now, I'd probably just rather play Wan'Dale Robinson. I don't really trust that DJ Moore is going to get himself enough workload, much less. Yes, he's getting a couple rushing attempts here and there, but with the limited nature going into this week, those opportunities could be kind of handed off to a different back and or specifically another receiver if Luther Burden gets in more expanded role because of DJ Moore's groin injury. So Wan'Dale Robinson should be your kind of inside tracked player for right now until we get further information regarding Moore's injury status for this weekend. Jerome Hill sends in a question, says, thanks for all that you do. Questions in the chat. Thank you, Jerome. Says, we have Pearsall. Okay, original running backs are JT, Gibbs, Connor, and ETN. I dropped Connor and was able to pick up Rashad White when Bucky Irving went down. Made a trade for ETN for Sutton and Diggs. Beautiful. Depth of wide receiver is not holding up with Johnston, Pearsall, McLaurin, Godwin, and Ayuk. With Rice returning this week and the trade I just made, Who should I start out of the four? Johnston, Rice, Sutton, and Diggs. Yeah, I think you have first and foremost, congratulations on the trades that you were able to put together. Beautiful. Love to see it. Well done on your end. Rice has to play. Sutton has to play. In the event in which Quentin Johnston is healthy and gets a full participation to practice, he starts alongside of those two. Diggs is the odd man out because it's a lot of weather and expected rain in Tennessee this weekend outdoors. Thank you. Appreciate it. Continuing on, we had a question from KLYZM who says, full PPR, CeeDee Lamb on the IR slot. Okay, drop one. My team is Dak, Jonathan Taylor, Dowdle, McConkey, Judy, Mason Taylor, JCM, Io Manor, Burden, Herbert. Oh, I see what you're doing. Okay, so you have Khalil Herbert, or maybe that's Justin Herbert. I don't know. If that's Khalil Herbert, got to get it off roster. It's probably Justin. I'm just, my brain's working in a different capacity. If you had to drop one, theoretically speaking, it's either genuinely, okay, here's my thought process. I don't know if you'll ever get to a position when you have CeeDee Lamb, Ladd McConkey, to which you would ever consider starting Io Manor. Like, genuinely, I don't think you'd ever get to that position. And with the Jets going on bye next week with Mason Taylor and Hawkinson being your next man up, I don't want to drop him. I'd like to keep Burden under the assumption there's a possibility in which, DJ Moore misses this week and Burden gets a greater role within that offense. So it's Io Manor and Judy, to which as of right now, I'd rather have Judy because there's always trade possibility. And there's always the possibility in which the 13 targets he had last week, maybe he doesn't drop a couple of those passes. Maybe we get more accurate opportunities to which his value could increase. Io's the drop, genuinely. Easy E. What's up, my man? Says you to man. Standard League. Wide receiver pick 2 between Quentin Johnston, Tedoroa McMillan, Golden, Bourne, and Burton. Okay. So we've got a lot of options here. I'm going to assume that Burton is actually Burden in order to, auto-correct it, unfortunately. But Quentin Johnston, under the assumption that he gets a full practice and he's back from the hamstring injury, he's in my lineup. I would probably pair him up with Kendrick Bourne under the assumption that Pearsall's not returning, Purdy is not returning, and Jawan Jennings is still dealing with broken ribs and Kittle's the only competition. I'd still play Bourne there, genuinely. So I'd go Quentin Johnston and Bourne. In the event in which we do have like a Pearsall return or Purdy playing, I'd be a little bit less keen on rolling with Bourne in that situation, to which I'd probably go with like Quentin Johnston and Tedoroa McMillan and just kind of roll it at that point in the standard league, hoping for touchdowns at that point. Beaver sends in a question, says, I'm 2-5 and my team is Lamar, Dart, Saquon, Montgomery, Javonte, Pollard, Pickens, Quentin Johnston, Mooney, Jennings, Bowers, Mason, Taylor, Pinheiro. Any trade recommendations? Okay, so looking at the team as a whole, when you have, MVP Lamar, and until he comes back, Dart filling in, beautiful. I have no issue with that. You have Saquon Barkley and Javonte Williams, fantastic. I think Montgomery and Pollard are quite frankly only here for any sort of injury and or bye week situation. So you're fine, you're solid, you're good to go. And in the event in which one of them has a solid play within a flexible opportunity, you can roll with them. So I think your running back depth needs to be kept. Unless you can flip Montgomery and Pollard and go get a Derrick Henry, putting it out there. Pickens is solid, not moving him. Quentin Johnston's great. At this point, Mooney, Jennings are not really startable, but again, unless you were going to trade these two for a wide receiver, you could do that, but I'm not trying to move two. I'm trying to, like, if I'm going to get a running back in return, I'm willing to send off both. In the event in which I'm getting a receiver, I would try to only send one of those two running backs in specific. Bowers is solid until he returns. You have Mason Taylor. Yeah, that's my only trade rec, to which I could send maybe Montgomery and Pollard and try to get one running back in return. Again, I'm going to continue to harp on the Derrick Henry train if I continue, if I can. At this point, in terms of kind of fantasy points per game of opportunity, technically David Montgomery's averaging more points per game than Derrick Henry. Sure, one has more name value, but you can splice in Tony Pollard on top of it and just say, hey, listen, Pollard might get traded. You never know. And then just try to yoink it. I know that in terms of a 2-5 record or 2-4 record, which is probably where you're at, it probably doesn't serve you well right now, but I'm looking forward to next week once Lamar is back, trying to just string together a win streak at that point. Josh sends in a question. Says, questions in the chat. Thanks to all you do, Andrew. Thank you very much, Josh. I appreciate you guys. Okay, Josh says, did I cook or did I get cooked? I traded Rashad, White, Myers, and Charbonnet for Cortland Sutton. My team is now Dak. Okay, so Let me see here. What's your running backs look like? Bijan, Taylor, and Scat. Okay, well, your studs are there. Garrett Wilson, Adams, Mike Evans. And yeah, look, honestly, you've got so much talent across the board. It's irrelevant. You're fine. I think that's a solid trade because Myers, in my mind, has no value at this current moment. Unless a trade is to occur, his value does not change. Charbonnet is just sketch. He's either going to score you 4 points or 10 points, and that's basically it. There's no middle ground. And then you have Rashad White, who's 100% contingent on another player's health. So ultimately, getting Sutton in to be able to just kind of keep this train going, which is a ridiculous train. I mean, my goodness, the talent on this team is ridiculous, Josh. It's ridiculous. So, yeah, you're in a really good spot there. As for starter sits for this week, I'll take Dak Prescott over Herbert, but they're legitimately back-to-back ranked within my rankings today at quarterback. Kraft or Goddard, I have Goddard ahead of them, but they are also back-to-back ranked in my rankings today. Just so we're all on the same page in regards to rankings today, let me go ahead. I'll throw it up on screen right now in regards to some quarterback and tight end rankings from earlier today. I believe, let me see here. So those are my tight end rankings from earlier today. And then in regards to, let's see, can I delete these? Yeah, beautiful. So yeah, Goddard's at number 5, Kraft is at number 6. We'll lean in that direction. And then we have Dak Prescott at 3 and Herbert at 5. Like, they're so close in terms of their potential productive value. I mean, I'll go with Dak and I'll go with Goddard. If you wanted to play Herbert and Kraft, I wouldn't even blink. I think they're all great. And then it says 2 wide receivers, 2 flex between these opportunities. Okay, we have Evans, Sutton, Adams, and Scat. Adams has to play under the assumption that Puka is out. And then alongside of him, I'd probably go Sutton. And if Evans, if it's a full PPR, I'm okay going Evans alongside of it and just going all triple wide receivers, only if Evans gets a full participation of practice by tomorrow and there is no limitations to his play. If they say he's going to be limited, just play Sutton and Adams with Scat. Thank you. All right, let's hear 26 bands up, says full PPR. 12-man standard league. We have Brees, JT, Jefferson, Addison, Scat, ETN, Devontae Smith, Jennings, Bourne, Lamar. Waivers are, I don't know. I'm not sure who that is. Fields, Mac, Jones. Okay. Oh, these got to be all quarterbacks. So this is Bryce Young. Got it. Okay. It's just spelled differently than I'm normally kind of used to. Okay. So if we're looking for 2 wide receivers, 2 running backs, and a flex. Okay. So let's just get this quickly, just settled, right? In terms of running backs, Jonathan Taylor and Scat are playing for you, right? So those are your 2 running backs. As for your 2 wide receivers, Justin Jefferson probably plays alongside of Addison unless there's a possibility in which Mac Jones plays. There's no Pearsall, Jennings, and Bourne could be a better play. Otherwise, it's both of the Minnesota wide receivers. And then as for your play for this week at quarterback, if I'm not mistaken, I just showed quarterback and tight end rankings just a moment ago. In regards to quarterback, Fields and Mac Jones, I have Mac Jones at number 13, Fields at 14. So I just go with Mac Jones there under the assumption that he is playing. If he's not playing, I'd legitimately rather just play Fields at that point and hope for all the rushing yards that I'm able to theoretically accumulate. Thank you. Kent sends in a question. Says, appreciate the support. Okay, thank you. Appreciate it, my man. Says, half PPR, Mason Taylor at my tight end. Now I need a tight end and a flex advice. Okay. Says, bench is Hollywood Brown, Burden, or Harvey. Waivers, Otten, Tess Johnson, Whittington, Booty, Mayer, or Knight. Okay, if I grab a waiver guy, who do I drop? Okay, so here's my thought process on the matter. Technically speaking, Kansas City's offense now that they get Rashee Rice back makes it a little bit more difficult for us to, on a weekly basis, start Hollywood Brown because the hierarchy of targets are probably going to be Rice, Worthy, Kelsey, Hollywood. And then there's always going to be the opportunity of Tyquan Thornton, the running backs, Noah Gray getting some workload there. So Hollywood Brown, in my mind, I don't think I need to keep him on roster, to which I'm thinking to myself, if I want to flex out of all those options, I think I pick up Michael Mayer and I play him. That's probably the direction that I go in this week. In the event in which you have the opportunity in which Mike Evans is not active and Otten is still available, I would pick up him and play him in the flex alongside of Mason Taylor there. Thank you. But Michael Mayer is my immediate opportunity in which I'm just going for a 1-week play to just try to get the most out of my flex this week, dropping Hollywood to accomplish that. Thanks, man. Got a solid start with A-Rod and Chase Brown. Brother, playing A-Rod is some dangerous business, to say the least. Congrats. All right, AB23 sends in a question. Says, would you trade Marvin Harrison for J.K.? Yeah, I would. Says, I have Rico, Dowdle, and Pacheco. Yeah, you need an RB2, objectively. My wide receivers are great. Perfect. Yeah, let's make this trade. Absolutely. Thank you. I'm Barl. Says, questions in the chat. Thank you. No problem, Barl. Says, I traded away Mahomes, Lamb, and Evans. JCM. Okay, so you traded away a haul. Let's see what you got in return. Caleb Williams, Puka Nacua, James Cook, Marvin Harrison, and Goddard. Okay, I'm fine with it. I mean, look, at this point, you get back the number one wide receiver in fantasy when healthy. You get back a tight end that I'm assuming you needed. In regards to the value which James Cook provides, again, that's a top 10 running back rest of the season. You get Marvin Harrison that is going to be solid. And yes, even though Mike Evans in the short term is going to be more valuable, once Godwin and Ibuka return to the lineup, I think their values will be comparable. And then you get a little bit of a downgrade. I mean, a pretty significant downgrade at quarterback. But once Mahomes stops running, eventually, I think it's a great trade. Anytime you're able to go get a top 10 running back and legitimately get the number one wide receiver for the rest of the season in a full PPR, I don't see there being a problem at all. On top of the fact that you have Achane, Diggs, and Tedero McMillan, like, you're going to be starting Achane and Cook, Puka and Marv, and then you can pretty much throw Tedero McMillan in your flex, Goddard at tight end, and Caleb at quarterback. I'm fine with this. Thank you. Next, he says, after bye, trade Judkins for Henry. If you can get away with it, sure. I think it's probably easier to bargain and trade for Henry now while he's on a bye, because many teams that may have Henry, because he has underperformed at such a significant level, it may be easier to trade for him today. But in the event in which you can still trade for him next week, then yes, you do it. Alex Ruiz says, PPR, I dropped Michael Carter for Pacheco. Thoughts? I don't have an issue with that. The way that I see it, Michael Carter is a fleeting commodity and now a two-headed monster in that backfield. Yes, he will be the primary receiving back, but ultimately in terms of the value that he provides for rest of season, Pacheco is a little bit more in line to provide rest of season value in comparison to Michael Carter, who is a fleeting commodity in a short-term sense, especially when we're waiting for someone like Trey Benson to return, or maybe Arizona makes a trade for running back here in the coming weeks. We'll have to wait and see. Hunter Collins sends in a question, says, I traded 3 firsts in Dynasty for Jamar Chase. Thoughts? I got him after I lost Neighbors this year. Also have Puka. I mean, look, anytime you're able to get Jamar Chase, I don't care that you gave away 3 firsts. It's irrelevant to me. The 3 first rounders are well worth it in regards to bringing in Jamar Chase. Obviously, you're in a win now kind of window, considering you have Puka Nacua and Neighbors coming back next season. Like, you're in a win now window, and really at this point, if we're getting ourselves that much closer to pulling in the chip with making a move of this caliber, and truly you can get yourself into a position to where you're in the playoffs, we get into December, Joe Burrow returns, brother, I think you can pull it in, and bring it home. I mean, the whole thing, the only reason we play these leagues is to bring home championships. Like, there's one winner and 11 losers, or depending on if you play in a bigger league or smaller league, So every year, if you can bring in a chip, that's solidified. No one can take away the chip away from you. So if you can accomplish it by giving away 3 firsts, fuck yeah, let's go for it, brother. I'm all in on that. Let's see here. Schwani04 says, I traded Breece Hall, Sutton, and Jamison Williams for CeeDee Lamb and Ridley. Yeah, so this trade pretty much is a 3-for-1. You're trading Breece, Sutton, and JMO for CeeDee Lamb because Ridley doesn't really provide value. We know that. So in the case of which you currently have JSN, Sutton, T, JMO, and you're pretty much your wide receivers are going to consist of CeeDee Lamb, JSN, and T Higgins going forward with Christian McCaffrey, Genty, and Scattaboo. I think this is perfectly fine. Obviously, you're definitely paying more for a receiver, but because you have the depth technically to afford it, as long as bye weeks don't absolutely murder you in the upcoming weeks here, I think you're going to be in a really solid position to which you have a top 5 wide receiver rest of the way by giving away just, ancillary pieces based on your roster as it stands. Thank you. Anthony sends in a question, says, I need a quarterback, Stafford, Lawrence, or Fields. Honestly, I'd go probably Fields, Lawrence, Stafford in that exact order. If you're scared about Fields, then just play Lawrence. I don't really like the idea of playing Stafford in the absence of Puka. Last week didn't give me much confidence, but if you want to play Stafford, you can. Lawrence has more rushing upside in a 4-point per passing touchdown league. That's always what I lean towards. So if you're not going to go Fields, at least go Lawrence. Sean K says, hey, Andrew, questions in the chat. All right, Sean, thank you, my man. Says, might have to drop Shaheed to leave an open roster spot in the event that Mike Evans is a surprise inactive. Only other option is playing Michael Carter or keep Shaheed. Need ceiling. What approach do you take? Okay, so considering Mike Evans plays on Monday night, which again is very much so inconvenient for many of us, we're going to have to figure out what his overall practice kind of schedule ends up looking like this week in terms of his overall usage. I would say that maybe your alternative option could be waiting for Monday night and playing someone like maybe Tej Johnson or Cameron Johnson, maybe one of those other receiving options in comparison or, on the same team as Mike Evans in the absence of him. Or you could potentially go and pick up like a Christian Kirk, Torrey Horton. If those are available, I would try to pick up players that are going to play Monday night and pair them up with Evans and try to push for Monday night. Otherwise, you would have to play Shaheed because I'm not playing Michael Carter against Green Bay. So Shaheed would either play, or you go ahead and you pick up, like you drop Michael Carter because he goes on bye next week, and you pick up Cameron Johnson or Christian Kirk or Torrey Horton, and you push it for Monday. Thank you. All right, Kiwi, what's up, my man? Kiwi sends in a question, says, in a half PPR, I need 2 flex and a tight end. I have Hawkinson, Fannin, Mason Taylor, Waller, Pearsall, Whittington, and Ridley. Cool. I would suggest you play 2 tight ends. Specifically, I'm going to go for Fannin and Waller as my 2 tight ends in a half PPR. Both of them in the same game. I understand it's a rain game, but I feel like the tight end position is a little bit more in tune to be able to get more targets as their routes specifically are less of a depth conversation. So I'd lean in both of those directions. Give me Fannin and Waller this week out of those 2. Oh, that's 2 flex and a tight end. Okay, I'm playing all 3 tight ends, genuinely. Fannin, Taylor, Waller. Those are the 3 highest valued players that you have available to you. Appreciate it. Thank you. Sun Lu sends in a question, says, Darnold or Penix? I have Darnold ranked higher today in my Patreon rankings. Safety versus upside. Yeah, the thing is, the level at which Darnold has played at is so, that's, when I'm guaranteed 16 points, I'll take it. Especially when in comparison, the offense that is related to Penix is so run heavy. It scares me that he could be left out in the dust because of Bijan and Algier continuing to succeed in the ways in which they do on the ground. So I'd probably lean towards Darnold, especially considering, that's probably the direction that I go in. But if you wanted to play Penix, that's perfectly fine. As of right now, in terms of let me go open up my Excel sheet here. As of their current separation, I have Darnold as my number 18 and Penix as my number 21. So yeah, we could go about it one of those 2 ways. Doesn't really matter. I think Darnold is my preference, and you know that. Thank you. To the Max says, I'm looking to trade for Lamar in a full PPR 1 flex team. Is Fields, Gibbs, Achane, Rice, JSN, Sutton, Goddard bench? Is Dart, Rashad White, Kendre Miller, Spears, Pearsall, Kincaid, and Burrow in the IR? Who do I offer for Lamar? Well, here's the thing. If you try to take Lamar off their team, do you need to give them a quarterback, or do they have an extra quarterback on roster? For example, if they have Lamar and Dak Prescott, right, and they don't need to keep Lamar, then that kind of, it gives us a little bit of an idea as to which way we would have to go. Let's say they don't have another quarterback, and they're currently just dealing with Mac Jones. They don't even have Purdy. At that point, you'd have to give Jackson Dart or Justin Fields, whichever one of the 2 they prefer. And then you would probably have to give, I'm assuming they won't take Sutton. That's what I would try to offer to begin with. You're probably going to have to ship off, genuinely, one of your studs, one of these guys, because I doubt they'll take just Sutton and Dart. Maybe you can get away with giving Sutton and Rashad White if they don't need a quarterback, like Dart, and you can give Sutton and White and just run to the hills. Maybe that's a possibility. I'm trying to keep these studs. And in the event in which you need to give one of them in order to get Lamar back, I genuinely just keep Fields and Dart and just keep playing matchups as we continue. Because I think the value that they can provide is close enough to where the backups to these players you have on roster are not enough for me to justify the move. I think there's too much of a drop-off because, Rashad White's going to disappear in terms of his value when Bucky's back. Pearsall, Kincaid, little bit sketchy in terms of the flexibility here. So that's my initial thought, Sutton, Rashad White for Lamar. Dart and Sutton could be possibilities. Try those. Let me know. H. Jockish sends in a question. Says, Alec, Io Manor, Travion Henderson, Christian Kirk, or Woody Marks? As of right now, I'd lean towards playing Travion Henderson. I can guarantee that he's going to get 10 touches, maybe even more. And if he breaks out a run in a rain-heavy game, could be very nice. I think Christian Kirk could be the most valuable of the group, though, primarily because of the matchup against the Seattle Seahawks. But for right now, it's tough to say considering I think Christian Kirk could probably come away with like 4 catches for 40 or 5 catches for 50. Maybe he can accompany his performance with a couple extra receptions or a touchdown. Very difficult to potentially tell, but I think it's going to be such a one-sided affair between the Patriots and the Titans that Travion will have a little bit more value. Ramen God says, I'm facing Dak Prescott and Daniels. Okay. I've got JCM for Josh Allen, but my top QB waiver options are Murray, Ward, or Wentz. What do I do? Half PPR super flex. I would pick up and play Wentz. I don't expect Kyler Murray to play. So as of right now, I would expect for Jacoby Brissett to be playing in the place of Murray, to which if I'm looking towards Ward and Wentz, I would rather play Wentz. And I'd probably consider playing Wentz over JCM in the given week in the event in which it's between those two for your super flex position. Thank you. Mo Money says, I'm 3-3 in a 10-team, 2 wide receiver, 2 flex format. My team consists of the following players. Do I trade JSN for Henry and Rice? Yes, immediately. No questions asked. In a 10-team league double flex format, to which you're not only getting more depth, but you're getting more value in terms of point per game contributions to your starting lineup, I would 100% of the time take this deal. Give me Henry and Rice rest of the season. I honestly do believe that Rice is not even that far behind in comparison to JSN in terms of weekly contributions that he's going to put forth based on how incredible that Chiefs offense has looked in comparison to last year, to which I think you making this trade pretty much puts yourself in pole position to start turning around your season. From a 3-3 record, you can really easily get on top of it with once Henry comes back and Rice starts putting up the weeks that you have, alongside of Amon-Ra, Rome, BTJ, Judkins, brother. I mean, sheesh. Let's go. Fire it up. Let's get it. Shu sends in a question. Says, full PPR. Would you trade Nico for JCM and Rice? I would. I think Rice actually has almost identical value to Nico Collins in a full PPR rest of season, to where JCM is the cherry on top. I'll take both those guys. Baba Booey sends in a question. Says, PPR Fannin or Pollard? It's a really good question. Let me see where I have them ranked in a full PPR. One moment, please. As of right now, I have Fannin ranked higher this week. Thank you. Appreciate it. It's not by like a significant margin to where I'm like, oh, you cannot play Pollard here. But in a full PPR scoring format, it's so difficult not to play someone who is going to get himself probably 10 targets. If he's able to catch 7 of them, like that's so, like even if he catches 7 balls for 45 yards, like the value there alone off of the baseline, just off of the pure target opportunity share is just so valuable. It's tough for me to, pass up on that because there's always the opportunity of him scoring a touchdown or even getting more yardage, etc. Andrew Gonzalez sends in a question. Thank you. Andrew says, would you do Pickens, Kincaid, and Nico? Pickens, Kincaid, Nico, and Charbonnet for Roma, Dunze, McBride, Garrett Wilson, and Kamara. Okay, let me look at the one-for-one capabilities here, okay? So Pickens and Roma Dunze, I think, have comparable value once Lamb comes back, to which then we continue on. Nico versus Garrett Wilson, similar value. Obviously, even if Fields gets benched, I think Garrett Wilson is just as valuable. Then we continue on with a capacity which Kamara is better than Charbonnet and McBride is better than Kincaid. And even if you don't agree about the Pickens versus Rome and Garrett Wilson versus Nico in terms of their values, I think the differential between McBride and Kincaid and Kamara and Charbonnet is such a significant one in a full PPR scoring format, to which, yes, I would take that trade. Give me Rome, give me McBride, give me Garrett Wilson, give me Kamara. Thank you, Andrew. Tan Fam sends in a question. Says, I got offered Cam Scatterboot and Daniel Jones for JD5. I'm currently sitting at 3.5 PPR scoring format. My team consisting of Jalen Warren, Bucky Irving, Benson, Carter, Haskins, and Kendre Miller. Should I do it? I would. Considering Bucky Irving has an unknown timeline in terms of his return, Benson and Michael Carter, sure, they can both work, but you also have Bam Knight in the mix. Haskins has no value. Kendre Miller has no value. I mean, shoot, earlier today, Alvin Kamara specifically said that if I get traded, I'm going to go and disappear and start drinking pina colada somewhere. So basically what he's saying is if you trade me, I'm retiring. So Kamara is not leaving the organization. It's not happening. So as of right now, yeah, I like the trade. I genuinely do. I think what you're able to get in return and the value that which Cam Scatterboot will provide to you, not only in terms of this week, but rest of season, in terms of Scat, Jalen Warren, and Bucky as your trio later on in the year, I think is very valuable. Thank you. Sun Lu sends in a question, says, I need to fill up one wide receiver spot and a flex, deciding between Dallas Goedert, Michael Pittman Jr., and Terry McLaurin. Thank you for answering my previous question. No problem. So let's see what we're doing here. In regards to the current situation, wide receiver between Michael Pittman Jr. and Terry McLaurin, let me see what I have them ranked right now. I know I adjusted it ever so slightly today because I do believe that Terry McLaurin will play. So as of right now, I have Terry McLaurin one spot behind Michael Pittman Jr. in a full PPR. So I think that there's a conversation to be had to which we just play both wide receivers, primarily because they're both going to be in shootouts. McLaurin against Dallas' secondary, the number one matchup at wide receiver. Pittman versus the Los Angeles secondary that has given up their fair share of points to wide receivers thus far this season. I mean, yeah, there's a lot, and especially with Josh Downs being out. I mean, look, Goddard's been great. Scoring a touchdown for 4 consecutive weeks is fantastic. But, man, I want to play both wide receivers. So if we're talking about full PPR, let me see where I have them ranked to one another in terms of my projections. Yeah, as of right now, I have both Michael Pittman Jr. and Terry McLaurin 3 spots ahead of Dallas Goedert going into this week. Thank you. If it's a half PPR, it becomes a little bit more of a touchdown-dependent kind of conversation to which Goedert, in comparison to them, is actually ahead of them both. So if you're talking about a half PPR scoring format, because of the touchdown stability which Goedert has presented, I'd lean towards him over both, and I'd probably go like Goedert and Pittman, and then McLaurin will be the odd man out because he's coming off of injury. Maybe less potential for upside of a touchdown specifically this week. Thank you. Adam Thompson says, in a full PPR, I need one running back and one flex. We have JCM, Scat, Dowdle, and Vidal. And I need one wide receiver between these following options. Okay, so let's answer the first question. One running back and one flex of these available. As of right now, Dowdle, Scat, and JCM are just so damn valuable. As of right now, I'm going to play Dowdle. There's no way that I don't. I feel like I would be a huge fool to not play him after the last 2 weeks in which he has presented that value. Even if he burns me this week, he's done enough in terms of winning me the last 2 weeks alone to where he deserves the run in this week. So just off of loyalty and honestly, just because he plays the Jets, I mean, that run-stop defense is going to get lit up. So Dowdle's a great play. I'm going Dowdle there. Right now, I moved him down because I know Chuba Hubbard is going to play. In a full PPR, I moved him down to my RB9 in comparison to having him at like my RB5 earlier this week. So I'm still keeping him in the top 10 realm. As for your other alternative options, JCM and Scat, I think the matchup for Scat scares me. I think in a full PPR, he's got enough receiving workload to be just as valuable as JCM. But I'm going to probably play JCM and Dowdle there as the combo. As for your next option, Judy, Hunter, or Franklin, I would try to play neither of those three. I would genuinely look and see if I'm going to throw out names. I would legitimately rather play Jordan Whittington. I would rather play Jalen Coker. I would rather play Christian Kirk. I would rather play Alec Pierce, Zay Jones. Like, I'm just throwing out names. Give me any of those guys. I'd drop Hunter to accomplish that. Or even Troy Franklin at this point. Final question, Mason, Dowdle, Addison, or Addison, or Skull, okay, as in you're a Vikings fan. Dowdle has to play. That's your play. Thank you. Johnny Kilroy, what's up, man? Says, I think was right to go with Carolina's defense and sit the Steelers defense. Yeah, I mean, the underdogs are barking on Thursday Night Football. That's for sure. All right, let's hear it. Karch says, in a PPR 10-team league, I traded Abuka and Judkins for Gibbs. Oh, gosh. I have Allen, Bijan, Nico, Rome, Rice, Wart. I think that's Waddle probably, ETN. Okay, so look, you are in one of those situations where you have so much luxury of depth to where you can afford to make a trade like this. I don't love it because, again, moving Abuka and Judkins for Gibbs, I don't think it's an equal trade. I think you're losing value in the long term, but considering your other team, you know, the rest of your team looks like Josh Allen, Bijan Robinson, Nico Collins, Rome Odunze, Rashi Rice, Waddle, ETN. These players won't be greatly missed. I think you're going to be perfectly fine. I'm cool with it. Thank you. Let's see here. Tony Lopez says, in a full PPR, I'm desperate for a flex. Start one between Kayshon Boutte, Whittington, Mayer, Coker, Michael Carter, Cameron Johnson for the Bucks. I honestly, out of the group, would play Michael Mayer this week. I think the next best option would probably be Kayshon Boutte or Whittington. I think both of them may have weather implications within their games. So I'd rather just go with Mayer as of right now. It says, is Mayer the pick if Bowers and Jacoby are out? Bowers is out. Jacoby is probably going to be traded in the coming weeks, so they probably hold him out regardless, just to make sure he passes the physical to get him off roster because he's going to be an unrestricted free agent after this season. Thank you, Tony. John War says, in a PPR, Travion Henderson or Michael Mayer? I'd rather play Michael Mayer, genuinely. Sean K says, any of the Tampa Bay receivers stand out to you if Evans is out? Cameron Johnson would be the primary number one as of right now. Thank you. Ramen God 22 says, Rome, Nico, Tet, start 1.5 PPR. Nico Collins would start. Seattle secondaries in shambles. There's a reason why BTJ had his breakout performance of the year. Charles Hamlet sends in a question, says, I got offered Harvey and Cook for Kyron and Charbonnet. Thoughts? Okay, so here's the thing. Kyron and Charbonnet, technically, in my mind, have more value rest of season, primarily because of what Charbonnet provides in comparison to Harvey. I think Cook and Kyron, tomorrow I'm going to be posting my rest of season rankings at running back. Maybe I can include, I don't know if I'm going to be able to include wide receiver. I'm going to go do all the information and research right now just to kind of structure it so we have that video out for you guys. Because we are at week 7. We got 7 more, or technically, it's not the end of week 7, but we're halfway done through the regular season of fantasy football, as many of us have a week 14 final week of the regular season up until, the weeks 15 through 17 playoffs. So tomorrow we'll have rest of season running back rankings. Kyron and Cook will be relatively close to one another. Charbonnet and Harvey, I don't think it's relatively close. Charbonnet is going to be ranked and Harvey probably won't. It will require an injury to Harvey. It will require an injury to Dobbins for Harvey to be of any value this season. Therefore, Charbonnet's side is the one that I prefer. Thank you. All right. Appreciate it. We're going to probably be here for the next, let's see here. Been here for 55 minutes. I'll probably be here for another 5 to 10 minutes, and then we're going to close it out. I do appreciate y'all coming through. Let's see if I can answer some of your guys' questions in the live chat. Tony says, I'm desperate for a flex. Okay, so we already answered that. We're good to go. We'll take Michael Mayer out of the group there, Tony. Thanks, man. Nice Guy says, you see what Olave said, trades are part of the business, and he's had business discussions with the organization about the rumors, but he's not going to reveal what he said. I'm paraphrasing, but Olave to Buffalo, fingers crossed. Brother, if Olave goes to Buffalo, you don't understand how incredibly I'd be excited. Just for the value of Olave's rest of season, like the rest of his career. The trajectory of his career will be just, man, that would be so exciting. I'd love that for him. Obviously, he was a former first-round pick, and I think he would probably have to pull a first-round pick, but the Bills pick at the end of the first anyway, and they throw away those picks every year anyway. Let me see here. Buffalo Bills. Let's see here. I'm just genuinely curious. I want to see what they've drafted in the early rounds the last couple seasons. Okay, so drafting defense is something that they consistently do. Like this season, they didn't draft an offensive player until the 5th round. The year before, they spent a 33rd pick overall on Keon Coleman. Obviously, hasn't really gone the way they wanted to. Kincaid in 2023 was their first-round pick. That's solid. James Cook, second-round pick. You know what? To be honest, they've actually done pretty good in terms of the picks, but wide receiver is still where they lack. Just give the late first-rounder. Who cares? You're going to be drafting at like 28, 29 anyway. Maybe if you get to the Super Bowl, doesn't matter. You got 32, But I did not see that. Thank you for letting me know. I'll be sure to look after that after we go ahead and close out the stream. John says PPR, Tedderell, McMillan, Waddle, or Evans in the flex. Cleveland weather is no good. Yeah, I'll take Evans there. Thank you. Under the assumption he plays. But here's the issue. Unless we get a confirmation as to whether he's going to play going into Sunday's games prior to these guys playing, because Evans plays on Monday night and these gentlemen do not play, they play on both Sunday morning. If we don't get a confirmation that Evans is 100% going to play, you would just have to kind of pivot to playing just Waddle at that point. Johnny Kilroy says, if Chuba Hubbard plays, do I still start Dowdle? Yes. Thinking of starting Dobbins. I have Dowdle still ahead of Dobbins in rankings, but if you would like to play Dobbins, I don't have an issue with it, Johnny. LZ7 says PPR, star Waller or Hannon. Judkins is my RB. Honestly, I'm just going to double stack. Just give me Hannon. With Njoku expected to miss, the overall opportunity share for Fannin is going to just skyrocket genuinely. I mentioned it earlier. I'll reiterate. The tight ends of the Cleveland Browns, since Dylan Gabriel has taken over, have been targeted 30 times in the last 2 games. That's 15 targets per game on average. Fannin would get himself a lot of workload of opportunity in the absence of Njoku, to which in a full PPR, I greatly prefer him over Waller, who does not get as many targets. Hollow card says Scat, Bucky for Gibbs. You'd have to be in a super desperate situation to where, like, because Scat and Bucky are more valuable than Gibbs the rest of the season. So if your depth on roster is just like, hey, Andrew, I've got JT and Bijan as well, and this doesn't actually bother me giving these players up, then sure, no problem. But I have a hard time thinking that it is your situation. Question in the chat. Thanks for all the hard work. Thank you, okay, Tyler. You and him had almost identical question or logos. Hollow, if you can, give me more context of your starting roster before I give you a yes or no. Tyler Key, thank you very much, Tyler. Says Sutton over Keenan. Yeah, I'll take Sutton over Keenan. Trying to get Derrick Henry and Rashee Rice. To trade, I have JSN, Nico, Rome, Sutton, Dowdle, Kamara, Montgomery. What's an ideal trade? And if they don't bite, what's the most I should give away? Okay, so here's my thought process on the matter. I would give Rome Odunze, and I'd also give probably, I want to give away Dowdle, and I'd probably give Dowdle and Montgomery if I have to. I'd be willing to give two of these three backs to accomplish this, and Rome, okay? Now, we're not going to start there. Really quickly, I will say, like, Nico Collins has very similar value to Rashee Rice. So if they want to go 1-for-1, that's great. JSN is more valuable than Rashee Rice, but Nico is like identical and Rome is less valuable. Sutton is certainly less valuable. So we're going to start by offering Sutton and Dowdle to see if there's a possibility in which you could explore, just the 30-point expenditures that he's put forth, maybe giving them confidence in Sutton's consistency of play. Again, you can remind them that Sutton has put up 10 or more fantasy points in a half PPR in 13 of the last 16 starts in the regular season, 14 of the last 17 in a regular season and postseason comparison. So I would start with those two. In the event in which that doesn't get it accomplished, you can add it where it's like, if they want Montgomery in Sutton, beautiful. But if they want like Sutton, Dowdle, and Kamara, I'll give that as well. But worst case scenario, if they can't budge on that, Rome Odunze and Dowdle potentially. Maybe they don't want a running back. Sutton and Rome. Worst case scenario, genuine worst, you give Nico Collins and a running back, maybe two, and just let it rip. Like anything, legitimately, that's how much value those two players have rest of the season, to which I'm willing to break the bank. JSN never comes off roster. Now, if they want to give you both for JSN straight up, then okay, we'll take the deal. But yeah, that's like the kind of, let's start with offering Sutton and a running back. Then we'll slow up to Sutton and two running backs, then Rome and a running back, and then we'll just kind of slowly, we'll see where it, turns into. Hollow cards, what's up? Running backs are Saquon, Rico, Rachaad White, and I have Vidal as well. And Scat and Bucky are on my roster as well. So you've got all these stud backs. Okay, so here is my situation. So you'd have Saquon, Gibbs. Yeah, look, here's the thing, man. What Scat and Bucky provide to your roster rest of season, I think is more valuable than theoretically what Gibbs can provide. Like, if you're sitting in a situation where you're like, Andrew, listen, I'm at 2-4, I'm at 1-5, I'm in a really bad bind. Bucky Irving's not providing any value. I prefer to have Gibbs over Scatterbo to try to kind of bring my season back to life. Sure. But if that's not the case, I'd rather just have these two players, and I'll just continue to roll with Saquon, Rico, and Rachaad White until Bucky comes back, and Scat and Bucky and Saquon will be my guy. I'll have Scat and Saquon and Rico. And I have White as well. Try to move Rico. Like, if you're going to move Bucky and Rico, keep Scat, and maybe even just move Scat and Rico and keep Bucky and take Gibbs. That's what I'm trying to do. I'm really not trying to give these two players. I'm really trying to at least keep one of them if you can. Ray Pereira says, in a full PPR, should I flex Knight? I think it's an okay opportunity. I just don't love it per se because of the Green Bay matchup and, of course, the expectation that Jacoby Brissett will probably start this week. Says, or pick up Luther Burden, my running backs, or the only reason you would start Burden is if DJ Moore is out. My running backs are Achane, Henry, Chuba, and Hendo. Yeah, in this circumstance, I would play Achane and Chuba this week, genuinely, because that Jets matchup is going to be a piece of cake. My wide receivers are Ted and Evans. You're fine there. If we're going to start someone in the flex, is it Henderson or is it Knight technically? If DJ Moore is out, I pick up Luther Burden and play him. If that's not the case, then it's probably just rolling with Bam Knight and hoping for the best. SR20 Mars says, should I drop? Who should I drop for Mike Evans? Kincaid, Bourne, or Devontae Smith? Bourne. The thing is, Bourne doesn't have as much rest of season value in comparison to these two commodities. Bourne is a fleeting commodity in the form that in which when Pearsall, Jennings, Kittle, and Ayuk are fully healthy, there may be games where he's not active rest of season. Or maybe he just gets released. I don't know. We'll see. He's really just kind of like hanging on by a thread at this point once those guys return. Thank you. All right, guys. I think that's what we're going to call it here. Probably got a couple more minutes, and then we'll close it out. I do appreciate y'all coming through, supporting the channel. In regards to your viewership, clicking the like button, sending in those super chats. Again, I'll be back tomorrow with my updated rest of season running back rankings, the first of its kind for this season. I know that's something that you guys have wanted for a while. Maybe it's a little bit too late, but I've tried my best. I started 3-0, and now I'm 3-3. Now this helps a lot. Thank you. Okay, sounds good, Hollow. Yeah, so I know that's probably a long time that you guys have wanted rest of season rankings, but it's purely just been a matter of like, do I have enough time in my schedule to put it together? And I think tonight, going into tomorrow, will be enough time. I'll get that done and prepare for you guys. Carolina, Cleveland, or Miami defense? I prefer Cleveland, to be honest, under the assumption the weather gets really rough there. Even Miami's a solid option. Mason, Vidal, or Rico? I'd honestly play Rico, even if Chuba plays. Like, that's how confident I am in that play. All right, y'all. Appreciate it. That's where I'm going to call it. Have a great rest of your Thursday night. I'll be back tomorrow with those rankings. Again, if you guys want to go ahead and get my Sunday morning rankings and have questions potentially, you can go ahead and check out, of course, the Betr sign up, in which you can get my Sunday morning rankings sent from my email directly to yours. All you have to do is complete the 3-step process of signing up using code Andrew, making that first time deposit minimum of 10, and then making a first time play within a real cash play minimum of $1, and you'll be on that email list for the remainder of the season, every single week receiving my rankings, half PPR, full PPR, flex, running back, quarterback, tight end, defense, kicker, doesn't matter, all the positions, wide receiver. Or you could check out the Patreon. That's another alternative in which, if you are looking in that direction, you can take advantage of that opportunity. Thank you, everybody, for watching. I'm going to go ahead and cue the one and only Double Helix. Have a great rest of your night. I'll see you guys. Peace.